Bob, what can we learn about the concept of free will, which is really one of the deep mysteries of our mental lives? What can we learn about it from our activities in dreams? Do we have free will in dreams?
We don't seem to think we do. I mean, free will is a tricky question because we rarely in our waking life think about having free will. What we think about is making choices. And that sort of comes automatically without sort of this metacognitive reflection of, this is my choice. Sometimes there's the angst of making a choice where we're really aware of it. But I think normally when we talk about free will, it's for making the everyday decisions that we make all the time. What we notice when we're dreaming, what our dreaming selves tend to notice, is that we don't have that capacity. We don't feel like we have free will when we're dreaming. We feel like we're being taken up in the flow of events. And although we're an active player in the dream, we also feel like we're a passive observer who's just taken along. So whether we actually have free will, such as we have in waking, in dreams, only seems to be the case when we have lucid dreaming. And lucid dreaming is that state where people become aware of the fact that they're dreaming. And when we do that, we also gain a certain kind of control. So this is a different kind of control and free will because it's much more than we could imagine having in waking. So if you decided you wanted to fly, free will wouldn't help you. You can't. But in a dream, it can. And so you can fly in a dream. And when you become lucid, interestingly, when people become lucid of all the things they can freely choose to do in a dream, flying is actually what they like to do most. But then what you see is you see the limits of that kind of free will, because you can't, for example, like you can when you're awake, just having a fantasy or doing some daydreaming, you can't put yourself in Paris by just deciding to. If you want to put yourself in Paris in a dream, you have to walk through a door, or walk around a corner, or spin around in space for 5 seconds and stop, and then you can suddenly be in Paris. So it's like you have control over some of those brain processes that we normally think of ourselves as having control over.
So let's try to figure out if there's anything we can learn about the real free will in the waking state from the dream state. We know that in dreams, if we don't have the same kind of sense of free will, we're sort of being taken by this, we also know that the forebrain is less active in the dreaming life than it is in waking life.
That's right, but it's even more than that. So you've got the prefrontal cortex, which is usually involved in decision making. But in REM sleep, you also have a change in the chemistry of the brain. And the release of norepinephrine, or noradrenaline, and serotonin, two major neurochemicals, is completely shut off. And those are the chemicals that your brain needs to direct action. You know, if you want to really do something, you feel the adrenaline build up in your body. That's matched by noradrenaline, a slightly different chemical in your brain. And they're really good at focusing your attention and initiating behaviors. And in REM sleep, those are completely shut off. So not only don't you have the frontal control systems, but you don't have the chemicals in your brain that would normally let you choose an option with free will.
So this seems to be at least the beginning of a biological clue as to how free will can work. Because if we don't feel free will phenomenologically in our dreaming state, and we see the biological, at least correlates, in terms of the prefrontal areas of the brain and the neurotransmitters that you're talking about, we see that correlation different in the dreaming state than in the waking state, and we also have the phenomenology that in the dreaming state we have less free will apparently than in the waking state. Maybe that's beginning to be a nice correlation.
So let me tell you how it really works.
Sure.
What you have, in fact, with free will is a balance between these two neuromodulators, norepinephrine and serotonin, which are very good at bringing your attention back to a focus and to direct action. And when you're in REM sleep, you have an increase in a neuromodulator called acetylcholine. And we know that that shift allows for the brain to see more distant connections. Okay, so if you're thinking about words and what they're connected to, when you wake up out of REM sleep, you will find more distantly related words than if you are awake or if you wake up out of non-REM sleep. What free will is about is letting your brain go cholinergic, if you will, and consider the possibilities, then coming back to norepinephrine and serotonin that'll focus you down onto one of those possibilities, and then you either lock it in and choose it, or you go back to the cholinergic state and have a new shaking of the bucket and another choice comes out. It's sort of an evolution on the second by second basis.
Now, this is fascinating in terms of its biology, but we have a natural complexity here in that we're talking about the you doing this, and then we're talking about the biological system making it happen. So is it the biology of the cholinergic, the acetylcholine, and the combination between them and all this stuff? Is that the thing that is giving us the illusion of free will? Or is that us in some top order wanting to do this, and therefore the biology is following that?
Oh, I think the biology is following. I think that what the prefrontal cortex is doing and what free will, in whatever form you want to define it, is doing, is it's deciding when to fish and when to cut bait. So, it's all about, do I keep...
But what is the it?
It?
It. What is it?
It is a circuit in the brain that decides that the choice that has come out
But the circuit in the brain is the same biochemistry you've been talking about. It's circular. We're going back circular.
Well, if it's in the brain, it's going to be a circuit. Now, what this circuit is doing is this circuit... Okay, so you've got the aminergic system, the serotonin and noradrenaline, which pulls one of these choices out that the cholinergic is just muddling around. Well, I could do this, or I could do that, I could do this, I could do that.
But that doesn't sound like free will. It's just that it's happening.
So this comes out. So the choice is when this system picks one out, the choice is
then I think I have free
will.
will. That system picked it out.
Well, yes, that's all it is.
So I don't have free will.
No, that's
your
you.
system.
That's
your
you.
system.
That's you,
That's
Robert.
me.
You are all these nerve cells doing this thing. They produce your consciousness. They produce your sense of free will. They decide.
It's all an illusion. Is that what you're telling me, Bob?
Which? The consciousness?
Yeah, all this.
Consciousness
all these
is
systems.
real. Free will? I could come up with an argument that free will has as much freedom as you would ever believe. I mean, remember the famous quote, "I'm depraved on account of because I'm deprived"? It's no one thinks that we have total free will. When your kid makes a decision with what you think is his free will, you know that his choices are incredibly constrained by his past, by his character, by his physiology, by the memory stored in his brain. He's not going to choose to go to South Dakota State because he's never heard of South Dakota State. He might think he's picking the college he's going to go to, but you have incredibly sneakily manipulated his past to aim him towards a small set of colleges, and he's going to probably choose one of those. And you feel good that he freely chooses the one that you've set him up to choose. So did he choose it or did you? That's a silly question. Those are different level descriptions of the same phenomenon. No, I choose to go to the movie with my friends instead of studying for the final. That's a free choice I make. But the way I make that choice is by having my brain circuits carry out a series of calculations. Some of those you're saying, well, I'm running a strong B+ in the course already, so I mess up on the exam tomorrow, I'll still get a B. That's a calculation your brain's making. You know that. The piece that feels magical is this decision, okay, so I'll go to the movie. but you feel it as a calculation in your mind. I don't think you have to make a decision between having free will and having determinism. I think you can have free will in every sense that anybody ever meaningfully talks about it, except some philosophers, and still have a basically deterministic brain. Because that's how we make choices. We make choices by calculating which of these two things we'd rather do. Yes? No?
Who is the we that are making these brain choices?
The self. The self. The sense, well, it's done, okay. It's done at one level by chemicals, at another level by nerve cells, at another level by electrical activity in the brain, and another level by conscious choice. Those are all descriptions of the same phenomenon. And it's no more meaningful to say that the free will is an illusion than to say that the chemicals are an illusion. You're going to tell me that those chemicals decided I would go to the movie? That makes no sense to me. It's just a different level of description of the same process.